Hello viewers and welcome to the latest episode of the Huddle. Tim Poole here, editor of Gambling Insider, and I'm once again with Jörg Hofmann, partner at Melchers Law. Jörg, thanks for joining us once again.
Thanks for having me, and it's a pleasure to be back here.
Yeah, always good to speak to you. Last time in London, next time we might be speaking somewhere else. But every year we speak and we talk about the German market, and the conclusions are quite similar. This year I feel it might be because we spoke with Martin Heyer the other day of the EGBA, and when I asked him to pick out a market that has disappointed him this year in terms of progress, he picked, unsurprisingly, Germany. So overall, what are your thoughts as we enter 2024 in the German market?
I'm afraid to say that I fully concur with Martin's assessment of the German market. It could be a wonderful market with a wonderful regulation, but unfortunately it's not, because there are too many restrictions. The challenge for the German market is to be competitive. To be competitive results in a channelization rate, and there are some numbers, some rumors about numbers, which I think are not really valid, not solid. The fact is that operators, many operators, and I'm talking about sports betting operators and so-called virtual casino operators, they're not happy with the turnover, with the gross gaming revenue, because the share of black market operators is still enormously. So that's the point. And the interstate treaty is something that provides the legal basis. The regulator says, and said it yesterday here, because two regulators showed up in London, which is very good. They said, well, we cannot change the regulation. We cannot change the interstate treaty. I say that is correct. We couldn't blame everything on the regulators, but of course there is leeway, there is discretion by interpreting special provisions. There are restrictions which I think go beyond what is acceptable for the market in terms of channelization, because you cannot compete with black market operators. Good thing is this year, by the end of the year, there will be an evaluation of the first years under the new regime. And hopefully it is a true evaluation saying, okay, we need to adjust a few things. And this will result in maybe later in amending and changing the interstate treaty and the provisions. So for the industry, I wouldn't say it's a bad jurisdiction. It's a jurisdiction that needs improvement and that will have some improvement experience in the future.
So it sounds like there could be some positives in 2024, but I do remember speaking to you on many occasions where we were looking forward to certain things happening, and they did happen, and the market still didn't necessarily take off in the way it should.
Honestly, I'm slightly disappointed because it takes so much time until changes will be applied. But I can also give you the reason why this happens. Usually, in other jurisdictions, you have one gaming control board, one gambling commission, one authority being in charge. We do have an authority, one, which has, I would say, federal competence, but it's not established under federal law. It's created on the basis of the interstate treaty, meaning 16 states in Germany. They signed this treaty, and they all want to have a say in where to go and where not. And this includes states which are still reluctant in terms of gambling and gambling regulation. So that explains why this regulation is quite restrictive, too restrictive, of course. And the main issue is there is no real power of this authority to make decisions. They might think we should say yes to an inquiry, but they need to seek the approval of a gremium which is called Verwaltungsrat, which means administrative board. It's represented by politicians, state chancellors, but these people, they are not experts in gaming, so they listen to the regulators. And that means the former Glücksspielkollegium, the gambling committee, which officially was out of its position by the end of 22, is still the most powerful influence on that authority. And they tell them, you say yes or you say no. That is not official, but that's a matter of fact. And so we are receiving delays in responding, but this authority, we're also receiving decisions which I personally do not understand because they make no sense. The regulator or the politicians do not understand that the player protection can only happen if those license operators are ready to be competitive and the restrictions are true. I can name some examples, but I think this maybe is the cup of tea of one of my colleagues who will discuss details of regulation.
Yes, I'm about to speak to, as you say, a couple of your colleagues from Melchers Law. A final word from yourself. If it's what's going to be the next step in Germany? Is it very much that evaluation that you mentioned earlier?
There is big hope that the elevation will change a lot. I'm not too optimistic because I think there are voices which even argue for further restrictions to protect players, to do responsible gaming. I think it sounds good. Theoretically, you can have the most restrictive regulation. It reads very well, but it doesn't work because the player plays outside. The player will not play in that environment because he will not find what he's looking for. And I think it's very important to understand, to educate, that this is the main criteria, the channelization rate, and the tools to receive that is the interstate treaty and its interpretation.
Well, Jörg, thanks very much. And
a pleasure as always.
I look forward to hearing what your colleagues have to say in a minute as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So we've just spoken to Dr. Jörg Hofmann and now with Chan, his colleague from Melchers Law. I understand you have a specific topic to talk to us about in the field of player complaints.
Exactly. There's a huge wave of player claims in Germany. The players are claiming for their accurate losses against operators in Germany which have offered their online gambling without a German license. That was the key fact, that the German license did not exist in the former past. We are defending them in Germany in different civil law cases. This is not regulatory or administrative law, it's civil law, and based on the contract between the player and the operator, and these contracts are from the player side, from their perspective they are void, and based on the void contract they want the refunds and the money back, and these are the claims which are overwhelming the whole industry at the moment, and everybody's struggling with these claims.
It's an interesting concept. It sounds quite unique to anything I've heard of. In terms of legally, as lawyers, is there much precedent for this kind of case? Is there any kind of case law you can refer to, or is this all quite a new concept?
Yeah, it was a new concept based on void claims. It started with claims against the payment providers. Yeah, that was the first target of the player industry, I would say. Because they try to get the money back. You have to understand that behind the players there are big industrial funders who are supporting the players by making the payments or assigning their claims and try to get the money back. It's like a mass claim industry that changed now their industrial field to the gambling operator side. And their first target was payment providers. There they got big losses at the German courts, and they tried to find new targets, and that were the operator themselves, and then they started. And this was very new. So it started in 2020, I think the first claim started and rised up. And it started first with casino games. Slot games, poker games, operators who offered these kinds of arts of online gambling, and then after big successes on the player side, they extended their claims to sports betting, to the sports betting area. These are now also on the target in the field, and it's a big wave against the operators and the whole art of online gambling.
Yeah. And I understand directors are sort of personally being targeted in these cases as well?
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you heard about Bill 55 and the new law in Malta that came up last year. It was made by the Maltesian government to deny enforcements from rulings like abroad, like in Germany. And it was a kind of protection. The Maltesians said, look, it's our license, why isn't it accepted based on European law, and this should be applicable also in Germany. But the German says, no, you need a German license, and based on that you are not allowed to operate here. And there were big discussions. And then this law came up in Malta, and that brought up a lot of problems for the funders because they were not able to get their positive ruling enforced in Malta. And then they tried to find new ways and new targets, and the easiest way to raise the pressure is to extend the claim on the directors. And now we are dealing with director claims. It's very interesting because they came up very new. Also in my firm we are defending a lot of directors, always successful at the moment, because the main key is here that the jurisdiction is not in Germany. Yeah, you have no contract with the director, and based on non-contract you cannot rely on a customer jurisdiction. In Germany it's a little bit technical here, but at the end we are trying to win the cases based on non-jurisdiction in Germany, and then the players are forced to raise their claim against directors in Malta, and that's very difficult for them. Yeah.
As you say, very interesting. I'm sure you're going to be very busy with these cases.
Yeah, exactly.
But I thank you for your time and good luck with all the work you're doing.
Thank you very much.
I'm here with Matthias from Melchers Law, who joined us a couple of years ago on the Huddle. It's good to have you back.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And obviously we just spoke to your colleague Chan, and earlier Dr. Jörg, he mentioned which something we often mention with Germany, low channelization rates. I understand in terms of recent numbers you can tell us that channelization is indeed a lot lower than it should be.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, from a helicopter's point of view on Germany, we've, the issue that many jurisdictions has, that you have the discussion player protection versus over-regulation. And now, since we've had licenses in place in sports betting since 2020, and in slots, online slots, essentially since end of 2022, beginning of 2023, the regulator they have their views. Our regulator, they've issued a press release last year stating that they would have 85% channelization rate, which would suggest a small black market. But recent numbers, both what the industry sees themselves, but also scientific studies, suggest that the black market is actually, I think the number I heard was 52%. So that is obviously an alarming development.
Yeah, huge. In terms of what the regulator could do, what the authorities could do, I understand there's something they could learn from here in the UK.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously a proper regulated market needs to be still attractive to the player, for the customer. And what we see an issue is what we call the betting catalog. So the scope of the permitted product is at this stage still very thin. There comparisons have been made by some of the stakeholders in the industry suggesting that if you compare, for example, what a UK customer can choose versus a German customer, just 13% of the range in available bet types, bet markets is here in the UK. And obviously this needs to improve. Mm-hmm. And so the question is, what can we learn actually from the UK? Unfortunately, we have a top-down approach in regulation, where regulation is put in place, and then we see it's a fail and error and approach. And I think and we've suggested this to our regulators: come to ICE, speak to people here in the industry, speak to other regulators. And one of the key things is to have consultation, like it's done with the UK Gambling Commission. You make a suggestion and you ask for stakeholders, not just the industry, everyone who is involved, all the stakeholders, and then you decide.
Sure. A final word from you. I put a similar question to your colleague Jörg. In terms of what we're going to see next in Germany in 2024, do you see the potential for at least some positive signs?
Well, I mean, I do in some areas. I mean, we've had our regulators come here to ICE. So it's maybe baby steps forward, but I think when it comes to product, I think we will be able to, show the regulators we need that more is necessary for the regulated market. So I think we're slowly moving toward the right direction.
Okay, well, Matthias, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
And good luck with everything for the rest of the year.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.